Landscape photography is one of the most difficult niches of photography. There are so many factors to consider and a lot of uncontrollable conditions that you have zero control over. And I'm going to be going over why landscape photography is so difficult in this video. What's up guys, a Project Photography back with another video, and today landscape photography is one of those niches where there's a lot of things that you have to consider when you're going out to shoot. You have to consider things like the weather, where you're actually shooting, how you're going to edit the photo and create the composition. And in no way, shape, or form am I trying to minimize the difficulties of other niches of photography and the challenges that they have to encounter. But me personally, I feel like landscape photography just doesn't get enough credit for how difficult it is. There are so many things to deal with, and I'm going to be going over 3 main reasons why landscape photography is so difficult in this video. And the first one is weather. Lighting is so important when it comes to landscape photography, and understanding the weather is absolutely crucial for being able to create the most beautiful lighting possible. And the reason why I say that this part is the most difficult out of any other situation for landscape photography is because the weather is not only unpredictable, but it's erratic and it's uncontrollable. You have zero control over the lighting and the weather. Weather translates to light, because depending on what the weather is and how it looks like, it's going to affect the lighting when it comes to your actual landscape photography. A cloudy day is going to have a different effect on the light than a pure sunny day. What time of day you shoot at is also going to be able to control these factors and all these different things. But there's a saying when it comes to weather that the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil can cause a tornado in Texas. So what does that saying mean? It pretty much means that, these initial conditions that we have to use to predict weather are so erratic and unpredictable that it's impossible to determine outcomes. That's why you see meteorologists only be able to determine the weather forecast maybe like 7 days in advance, and it changes hour by hour because we just don't understand the initial conditions because they can be so erratic and different. So how does this translate to landscape photography? Landscape photography lighting is the hardest light to really control and really get the best lighting out of it, because you can't even control it. It's one of those things where you really have to just put your best foot forward and do everything you can and hope for the best conditions to really line up. You can look at the weather to see what the weather's going to be. You can also go at a certain time of day, but there's no guarantee that's going to translate to great light. And that's the thing that I don't think people understand, is that especially for landscape photography and street photography and photographies where you can't control the lighting itself, that's what makes it so difficult, because lighting is the most important part of photography. If you can understand lighting and what it has to offer, then you can create amazing, beautiful photos. That's why portrait photography, in my opinion, is easier to deal with when it comes to lighting than any other subject or photography, because you have complete, utter control of the lighting, what it can be. There may be things like people who shoot with natural light and things like that, but you can use a flash and mitigate those effects and create your own lighting that you want. Landscape photography, you have zero control over. The best you can do is go at the right time of day and pick the right weather, but you can't actually control how the lighting works. And I think that's what makes landscape photography so incredibly difficult. And me, as an experienced landscape photographer who's been doing this for years upon years, that's the one thing that always gets onto me, and the thing that I really have a hard time with, because all you can really do is plan and prep for the right time and right time of day and the best days to shoot, but at the end of the day, it's really out of your hand, it's really out of your control. So that's the number one thing that makes landscape photography so difficult, that makes these other niches of photography much more easy to control, simply the lighting. The second part is that great locations are actually really difficult to come by. Landscape photography is one of those things where you have to live in the perfect area in order to get amazing landscape photos. Either that, or you have to spend a lot of money on trips. If you're going to go to places like national parks and things like that, you have to spend a lot of money to be able to get amazing photos. For me personally, I'm super lucky that I live in Southern California and go to school in Northern California. So this allows me to access to things like San Francisco, LA, and different types of shorelines that other people will not be able to get access to. I also have access to the mountains and other desert areas. And literally yesterday, me and my friend went to Joshua Tree, and it's only like a 2-hour drive. So you can do a day trip, absolutely. And the thing is, people who live in parts of the country or parts of the world where is super flat, really uninteresting landscapes, you can't really do anything about that. And that's the part that I feel like really sucks and is really hard for landscape photographers, is that you can only do so much with locations you're given. And there's no guarantee that locations you go to are gonna be beautiful. And that's really what people judge landscape photography photos by, is how beautiful the landscape is. And if you just have no access to things like that, then it's really hard to go out there and shoot amazing landscape photography without spending a fortune at least. Because yeah, of course you can go on these expensive trips, but that's really expensive. And a lot of people don't have the time or energy to do that just for photography. But someone like me, I really love photography and all these sorts of things. So, it might be more available to me, but for people who are more casual in it, landscape photography might not be the best niche for you, simply because, it's really hard to get to these places that are beautiful and whatnot. And that's kind of another big reason why landscape photography is so difficult. Just the fact that finding locations in the first place is really hard. Now, the third reason, and on top of everything that I just mentioned, you have to be able to know how to edit these things. You have to be able to know how to get the right composition, have the right tools, etc. The first two parts are really hard, but that doesn't mean that the third part is hard at all, because look, editing in landscape photography is probably one of the more complex areas of photography, because you have to understand Photoshop and Lightroom, you have to understand stacking, you have to understand how to create these compositions and be able to edit them in Lightroom and Photoshop. And compositions are not necessarily the easiest thing to come by either, because every landscape is so different. When I see all these tutorials on YouTube, it really frustrates me, because it's like, how do you know that this set of tutorials is gonna help you in this scenario? Every scenario for landscape photography is so different every single time. The rules don't apply ever. As someone that's shot landscape photography for a while, I can tell you that no two places is going to be shot the exact same way. You're going to have different variations in different places. And even if I go back to the same place multiple times, the shots that I get are going to be different, because the way you see the world and how you interact with it is going to be different from year to year. Compositions are something that you kind of just have to see, you kind of just have to gauge, and you can't really follow any rules. When I go and shoot landscape photography, I don't really think about what my composition is going to be. I just follow what my eye sees and what it tells me to shoot it at. And from there, I kind of work with the subject and kind of try to create a composition around it, if that makes a lot of sense. And the thing is, that sort of tactic only works universally because it's really broad and really open. It's up to interpretation for the photographer. And the thing is, not everyone's composition is gonna work for everybody. Like what I see as a great composition is not gonna be the same as what someone else sees. And that's something that's really hard to overcome, especially if you're out there shooting. Landscape photography is not easy by any means, and there's so much complexity that goes into it. So many things like uncontrollable conditions, certain things like locations that some people just might not have access to. And the editing is really, really difficult, because you have things like stacking, blending, you have all these other tools at your disposal that you have to learn in order to create amazing landscapes. And I just think that landscape photography needs more credit for how difficult it is, because honestly, I don't think people understand how much work goes into it, and it really is the closest thing to creating art as possible. I would like to consider it like the world is your canvas and your camera is your paintbrush, and that's really how I see it. And a lot of me gaining experience from landscape photography translates into your talent. I was not good at landscape photography right off the bat. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of trial and error to get to where I am. And these are things that you can't just learn off of tutorials from YouTube. My advice to people who are starting out in landscape photography specifically is you have to go out there and just shoot and shoot and shoot. Keep learning as you're going on. Keep understanding the conditions that you have to meet. Keep understanding light and composition, all these other things that are not easy to understand right off the bat. And I totally understand that. And what I'm going to be trying to doing in the next couple of weeks is creating more landscape photography videos, like tutorials, and how I see the world and how I can be able to help you guys translate that into your own work. I think that my perspective is different and unique in a sense that I don't see everything black and white. Everything is up for interpretation, and my goal is to get you guys to see the world in your own set of interpretation. Not every landscape is going to be shot in the exact same way. Every landscape is up to your interpretation and nobody else's, because this is the way you see the world, and that's the most important part. So give landscape photographers more credit than they deserve, because really it's so hard to be a landscape photographer. The hardest part that I still have to come across is definitely the lighting part. You know, I can't control the weather. I can only really control the time of day and when I shoot, and even then it's not going to guarantee the most amazing photos all the time. So when opportunity comes, you have to go and take it. And you know, that's one thing I've really prided myself in a lot over the years, is that, you know, when there's an opportunity, I just go and take it, because there might not be an opportunity like that one ever again. So that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think about landscape photography as a niche. I know it's not the most easiest form of photography, but I think it's one that people need to understand and appreciate when it comes to photography, because it really is like art. And I feel like when I'm going out and taking photos, I feel like I'm an artist, like painting and crafting a composition to make it look as beautiful as possible from things that I can't even control. So that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. Let me know if you guys shoot landscape photography and all that wonderful stuff. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.